All right, guys. Hey, welcome to the Sky's the Limit call. My name is Stephen Yee. I'll be your host today. What started out once as a joke is actually coming true. People were like, hey, you should interview your wife. And I'm like, I don't know if that'd be a good thing. I might be fired or terminated by the time we're done with that. But the time has come because she's been doing really, really well. And I'm excited for her to be able to share her story with you guys. But Nell, are you there? Can you see me okay?
Yes, I can see you.
All right, cool. So anyways, thanks for hopping on. Although you're in the office like right next door, can you kind of share with everybody that hasn't had a chance to necessarily know you or know your story yet? How did you fall into this life insurance thing and all that good stuff?
Yeah. So I'm Steven's trainer. I treat him everything he knows.
Here we go.
But no, I was in the dental field. Out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Just like every other Filipino parent, my parents wanted me to be a nurse. I don't do blood. I like freak out in the sight of blood. So I said the closest thing I can get to being a nurse is maybe a dental assistant. So I tried that out, and then I wasn't good at it at first, and I just kept doing it. And I got really good at it.
So how did you fall into life insurance of all things?
Life insurance. So after we got married, I moved from Northern California to Southern California, and it was hard for me to find an office that I liked. So I didn't want to work with a doctor that would lie to patients. Coworkers was a big thing to me. So if I didn't get along with them or they didn't get along with me, it was hard for me to find an office to work with in Southern California. And every day I would come home crying, complaining like, oh my God, she was mad at me for this. My coworker, my boss lied to a patient and did this. And you were like, why don't you just help me with the business? And I was like, are you sure? Could we handle it? Would we be able to afford it? And you're like, just trust me. Like you're more valuable to me helping me in the business, doing a lot of the admin work than, you coming home crying, complaining about a 15 hour to 20 an hour job that you have right now. And so I did the admin work. I dialed for you. I recruited. I did all the fun work.
Yeah. And then, that's the thing that, I wanted to always tell people. It's like, when we had gotten married, like, I didn't really understand your finance because I think we were just like newlywed and, this business had helped us pay for our wedding. But what was crazy was like, when you came home and cried, like literally, I was like, oh, wait a second. I think we're married now. Like I'm supposed to be like some part of that, and I was like, okay, like, how can I eliminate that? And it was like, once I found out what you made, I was, it was common sense for me, but maybe it wasn't. I was like, well, if I just protected a few more families every single week, I think you wouldn't have to suffer, and I kind of wanted to take that on my
policy was like my income.
Right. Like, yeah, I was like 2.5. Right. Mm-hmm. And so like, I was like, well, that's like a half a policy a week, one every other week, whatever it was. I was like, for her to not cry at home and all that stuff anymore, I'm like, dude, I'm in. Let's go do that. So sweet. You started dialing for me what you did. You booked appointments. You recruited some agents. Matter of fact, you recruited the gentleman that recruited Colton Dewar and his amazing family, which is awesome, right? You did a lot for us, and then you got pregnant, right? And you're like, all right, not doing this no more, as you should. And then so while I was building the business and selling at a very high clip, you were kind of just like behind the scenes, like my sounding board, my number one supporter or whatever it was. And then recently, after we had, done our integrity deal, you were like, hey, I think I want to do this. Right. And then you got an office and you come to the office, and sometimes baby girl comes here with us. But you actually immersed yourself in this business. And what was fascinating was, you could have easily just stayed on the building side, which would have been a cop out, the easiest way to do it. Right. You go, I don't need to sell. Let me just go recruit the agents, get them through class, get them in touch with our leads department, get them in touch with you to teach them how to sell, and I'm good. And you came to me one day and you're like, well, I feel like a hypocrite because like when they're asking you these questions about selling, I legitimately don't know how to answer them. So why don't I go sell too? Mm-hmm. Right. And so like kind of share with us, like you've been selling for the last 2.5, 3 weeks, your first week in the field, like share with everybody how that kind of went. Like what was that experience like? Because that was an interesting one.
Yeah. It was really tough actually, because everything that I got my hands in with the business, it was pretty easy. Like, dialing. I learned how to do that pretty quick. I just had a few objections here and there. And then you're like, okay, here's how you overcome that one. And I was able to get it right away. Recruiting, you taught me what to say. I was literally pregnant with Jules, and I would be out of breath by like, the fifth reason why they should join Family First Life. And then I'd be like, give me 1 second. And I'd like take a sip of water and just like breathe. And then I'd be like, okay, back to what I was saying. That was pretty easy. And then I got to like, getting people licensed. I knew how to do that because it was all from experience. And I feel like you're only able to teach people if you know how to do it yourself. Right. And so it all started piling, people needing help. And then, I wanted to help in that aspect. And I wanted to say, you know what, the best way for me to learn and teach people is to actually do it myself.
Right. So you did do it yourself, right? So your first week, you had a few appointments. Getting kicked in the face is part of what we do, but you didn't just get kicked in the face. You got punched in the face and all that good stuff. So, how was that? You had a lot of appointments. You showed up, you spoke to some people. How was that?
It was tough because I thought that, I was basically like every brand new agent, I feel like, because I always hear you talking about it. And I'm like, oh, that's simple. Why don't they just do it? And I'm like saying those things. Like, when you first told me the financial inventory, I'm like, I kind of want to improve it. Maybe I want to do this and add this. And you're like, with all due respect, babe, no, that's what every new agent wants to do. And I'm going, maybe I should learn all the products first, that way I can, and I'm like, oh my God, I can hear myself, and, I'm like, I just need to shut my mouth, listen, and figure it out, because you know what you're doing, but it was brutal. Like one of the calls I had last week, my first week, I pushed too hard and I made a client cry. She said she filled out the form because she was looking to get a reimbursement on her husband who had died 7 years ago. And I told her, that's not what you filled out. Nowhere in here does it say reimbursement. Nowhere in here does it say free. It's for you to protect your family. And then she was like, well, I'm not interested. And I said, with all due respect, ma'am, I just don't want your kids to go through what you're going right now at the time when you pass away. And she cried and she said, even though it happened 7 years ago, I'm still not over it. And I know because, we've had deaths in our family where I'm still not over them and I'm still grieving. And I just felt horrible. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And she called back. She was like, I want to speak to your supervisor. Who's your supervisor? And I was like, Steven, his name is Steven. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I was like freaking out. And then I was like, what did I do wrong? And that almost like made me want to quit because I didn't want to do that to anybody else. It's never my goal to make anybody cry. It's just my goal to make them realize nobody wants to talk about this stuff, but it's a conversation that needs to be done. You know what I mean? But yeah. And then like every I would have people from like the South that I would speak to. They were so nice, but like they would like tell me to like go away in like the nicest way, or that they weren't interested. And I'm like, okay, well, you have a great day. And I'm like trying to say, like, do you have grandkids? Because I Mutual Mama has this great children's policy. But I was trying to sell a little too hard. And then I didn't know where to go because I didn't have the proper training, and I thought
on that though, like, because you thought you didn't need the training because you lived with me. Right.
Yeah.
So like, talk about that, because every time you've gotten something, I'm like, babe,
that's in call
this is in the boot camp.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So, kind of share with that, because everybody thinks, to their, to their credit, I understand why, but everybody thinks you have some unfair advantage because you live with me.
No. So, I know, with the trainings and stuff, when you would tell me like, hey, if you only watch this call, you would know exactly how to overcome that and do this and do that. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't have time. And I kept making up that excuse. And I'm like, well, Janelle, why don't you make time? That way you can actually sell and, get people to get coverage. And so I actually tested out some of your boot camp. So I'm like the guinea pig to see if it actually works, guys. But to see, and I'm learning a lot of things on like how to properly write down the options for them, how to properly present it to them. Because like one thing that I was telling them during my presentation, I'd be like, okay, so like this policy is going to be $50 for 300 or 30K. And then this is going to be this, and I was talking too fast. And you're like, dude, slow down. They're writing this this stuff down and they're not seeing what you're saying. So I had to like break it down, and that's in like one of your training videos. And I'm like, oh, okay, so this makes sense. I gotta watch a video first and then put it into play, and then,
But even watching the video, like, because so many people just watch the video, they just listen to the audio, they don't watch the video.
Yeah,
And they're watching TV, taking care of the kids. Alan and I were just talking about it with you and our other staff, is like every time he does a training call with this one agent we have, something's always going on. So there's no way she can actually learn, right? And you were talking about that too. It's like, although you've heard some of this stuff so many times, you weren't in the season to receive it. What I mean by that is, like, you've heard me have conversations with other agents and go, oh yeah, that makes sense for that guy. But like, it never resonated with you because you weren't going through what they were going through until now. So now when you go through and I go, hey, you need to break down the financial inventory this way, this is how you break down the budget. You're like, yes, because you had a few no sales when they easily could afford it because we didn't break down the budget, right? And so like, that's why I always tell people, it's like, you when you watch the training, like, watch the training, like, pretend you're in class, there's no distractions, whatever it is. And if this is going to be a career for some of you guys, which, some of you guys, you want it to be, you need to actually treat it that way. You can't treat this like a hobby, like you're just watching a Netflix TV show and going like, we'll watch it when we watch it, right? Speak about your bad days, because you've had bad days.
I've had a lot of bad days, more bad days than good days.
That's a great way to say it. So like, talk about that. Like, how many times did you want to quit this? Like, legitimately?
Every day.
Yeah. And that's true. Because like, I tell people all the time, like, even as an integrity partner now, there's days I'm like, man, I don't want to do this no more. Like, now granted, don't get me wrong, I don't quit. I don't call corporate and say, terminate my contracts, right? But it's like the feeling of like, man, I just don't know if I can do this. And then the perspective of like, wait a second, what am I gonna go do instead?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you had a day, like last Friday, you had a killer day, a phenomenal day. You protected like 18 families that day. The day before, you were ready to throw in the towel. Like, share with everybody like the realness of your schedule. Like, how was that like?
Yeah, I think I said about like 10 appointments per day. And it was tough because every single person, it was either like, I'm not interested anymore, I already have something, or they just wouldn't answer and hang up. And then, I had that client that cried because of her thinking she would get a reimbursement. And then like, I wanted to give up, and I just want to say like, dude, I'm just gonna keep it or stay in like the building side of our business, or businesses, I should say. And it was tough because I was like, Thursday night, I had spoken to you and I was like, kind of complaining because I was like, I'm not good at this. I really suck. And then I had asked you, because I was like thinking about it, and I was like, how the heck did Steven do it when we first started out? Like, yeah, he had a wedding to pay for. So like, he had that pressure, but like after our wedding, you set goals for yourself. We had a kid, we lived in an apartment, we wanted to get a house. We had these dreams, we had these goals. And I was like, how the heck did you do it? Like, did you want to quit every single day? And you were like 100%. And I remember those days because you would text me and tell me while you were like in Bakersfield, like, dude, I want to go home. Like, I miss you and baby girl so much. And I would always tell you, like, go to that last damn appointment. You better go to that last appointment and I'll show up to your last appointment. And like, I thought about it like after that conversation. And I was like, okay, I need to stop being so negative. Just throw out the negativity. And I woke up Friday morning and I'm like, dude, I'm going to have a killer day today. And I went up to you and I said, good morning. Today is going to be a fantastic day. And then I got ready, went to the office. I called my first client that I had booked, and I told him, and I was like, oh, today's starting off to be a good day. And then I got these random, a few missed calls. And it was another client, and she thought that I was going to go to her house. She had prepared coffee, lunch, and everything. And then I can tell from her accent that she was Filipino. And I was already like behind because I'm new at this with like 3 other clients. So I called her because she was like my next one. And she was like, oh, I was so worried that you weren't going to show up. And like, she bought like 5 policies. And I was like trying to stop her. I was like, no, you don't need this much. Like, I don't want you to buy this much. I want you to just, buy enough so that like, you could leave behind this certain amount for your kids. And then I went through the rest of my schedule. And then I had this client who didn't need insurance herself. And then I told her, well, I always tell my clients, I'm your life insurance for life once you get connected with me. So if you have any grandkids or kids or any friends that need insurance, because not a lot of people think about insuring kids, and I tell them a story about one of my friends, her niece, who's the same age as our son, Bryson, was diagnosed with cancer. And, if she were to outlive the policy or like survive the cancer, it would be hard for her to get approved for anything else. And I always share that story. And she was like, you're right. Like, can you write me quotes for my grandkids? And I was like, okay, this would be like number 3 for today, And I was able to sell like 5 of her grandkids. And then like at the end of the day, I was like, God, imagine if I quit yesterday, dude.
Right.
And I decided not to call these clients. And it felt so good because I was like, it finally felt good to have a good day. But that one good day that I had, even though I had like 10 other bad days, was like 2 months worth of my salary that I would have made dental assisting, or even more than that, and I'm like
4 months.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I would do this 100% and choose this 100% every day. Cause like I get to still be with our kids. Like we get to work together, and I'm not coming home crying every day, complaining about something that I don't want to do anymore. Like, I mean, honestly, do I want to do this? No, but it makes me feel good when I help people, and like when I had that conversation and like letting them know that, their family is covered, like they sound so happy and it makes me feel good. And I'm like
Emilda, our client,
yeah,
your client, I should say.
Every day.
And like, you sent her, like, tell the story, like it was her birthday.
Oh, yeah.
It was her birthday that day.
It was her birthday that day. Yeah. And I said, oh, it's your birthday today. She said, no, I had today planned for you. Like I had coffee and lunch prepared, and I was like, oh, so I said, is this your home right now that you're trying to protect? Do you live here currently? She said, yes. So I went on DoorDash and I delivered her flowers and a balloon. And then like, while I was running the applications for her, she answers the door and I go, oh, that's my gift for you because it's your birthday today and you decided to spend it with me doing this instead of going out, and she started crying and she was like, you are such a great person. That's how I know that like I was meant to get in touch with you today. And then I told her, I feel the same way because yesterday I wanted to quit what I was doing. And I feel like I'm a woman of faith, but I feel like God had those bad days so that that day I could have a good day and get in touch with her and like make me realize like why we do what we do.
It's like that's what I'm saying. It's like, we always joke around and say this, like nobody wakes up one day and goes, hey, I want to be a life insurance agent when I grow up. But like the satisfaction and the thrill of being able to protect families and for her to call you to be like, oh my gosh, like thank you so much and cry with you, like you can't replace that with money. Like, I don't know, not me at least, right? And so that's why it's like we love it. And like the fact that we get to do this together, one of the things I wanted to kind of touch on, and I want to give people a heads up on this. While you were complaining that night, Thursday night, and this is all intentional, as you would always want to laugh about it when I say this. This is all intentional. Like Janelle is sitting there screaming, like not screaming. She's being like a little kid, right? She's like, I don't want to do this, and I can't believe I can't do this, and da da da. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, yeah, whatever. All right, cool, yeah, whatever. Like I gave it no attention.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why. When I was a brand new manager, I would. And I would want to be captain, save everybody. And what I realized was it was their journey that they had to go through because I went through mine. And so when she woke up the next day and she decided to have that moment where she was like, you know what, today's going to be a great day. I didn't tell her to do that. She came up with that herself. And guess what? It did become a good day. Like, some of us need to stop babying the people we work with. And although this is my wife and I truly love her, and like if something bad were to happen, matter of fact, we can tell that story. I had to scream at a client on Saturday just for you, right? But you can't baby the people that you work with, and you can't coddle them through the learning process. They have to go through it themselves. Getting no-showed, getting, killed in the field. Like, why was I not worried about you going 0 for 10 that day? Because I knew that the following day something was going to happen. You want to know why I know that? Because this happened to me thousands of times. I can ask David Chen, who's on this call right now. Go, hey, David, how many times have you gone over? And then the following day you sell, 3, 4, 5 families. He's gonna be like, plenty, right? And so like, we know that. And so like, one of the best things I can tell everybody on this call, my wife who lives with me, and we do decent, like very well, even she wants to quit every day. And so if you ask yourself and go, man, like sometimes I want to throw in the towel, is this normal? Yes. Yes, it is normal, because most of you have never done this before, and it's okay. Matter of fact, the following day after you protected all those families, you got annihilated on Saturday. And it was just the numbers being the numbers. But here's what I told Jordan Hamilton. I was like, if you made a sale the first 2 hours of your work week, let's say on Monday at 8 o'clock, Monday at 9 o'clock, you made 2 sales, protected 2 families, and then you made nothing for the next 5 days, 6 days. But at the end of the month, more money you've ever made in your life. Can you deal with the rejection, but also having the best income year you ever have? Because that's what this is. See, the most people quit because of the mental game, that they're not mentally strong enough to deal with the rejection, missing shots, all that stuff. So, we're talking about that right now. Like on Saturday, right? We have this client that tried to bully you on the phone.
Yeah.
I was like, yep, give me the phone. Give me the phone. And I got on the phone and I put him in place real quick. And I was like, dude, we're not going to do this. And he's like, well, I'm not trying to be hard. I'm like, dude, don't do that. I clearly heard the phone call. I was on speaker the whole time. Right. And then we hung up on him because we're not going to do that. And the reason why I did that for you is because Joe did that for me when I was brand new. I was on a call and this client lit me up because I didn't know what I was doing, because I didn't. And Joe heard me. And so he called the client back on speaker for me to hear, and he defended me. Right. And it's like, sometimes we just need to know that the people we work with have our back.
Yep.
Right. And so, anything else you have to talk about? I mean, let me ask you this question, knowing where you are now, because you're, I don't know, 21 days in the business. Let's just call it that. Do you feel like you're so much better than you were on day one?
The more sits that I have and the more presentations, yes, because with each presentation, I learn something new. And even the ones where I make mistakes, kind of to add with what you were saying, even gold is tested through fire, right?
That's good.
I feel like this is me being tested so that I can get to where I need to be in order to be stronger, to be a better agent, because I have a lot more stuff to learn. Like, I feel like I still don't know what I'm doing, but I'm not going to learn if I just sit and complain. I actually need to do the work. I need to make the mistakes that every single one of these agents, those top producers that you see, made in order for me to get there. Because I can't just expect myself to start selling, be amazing one day, and then be at where Alondra's at, Nina's at, all these amazing women, Teresa, Leah, all of them, because they went through exactly what everybody else is going through. And I feel like not enough people talk about it, because we only post the good things on social media, right? We never post us crying about the days like it was really hard, and it sucks because there's some people who really it is more for them when they get a 0 out of 10, and mentally it's really hard too. And that's for an aspect when I help with talking to agents and recruiting, I tell them like, it's not for everybody. You have to make sure you have tough skin. You need to be able to face rejection. And, you know, but the thing is you have support, but you're not going to find support if you don't ask for it. That's the thing.
Talk about that, because
a lot of people,
you know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Talk about that, because a lot of people think that they want to do this by themselves. And that's why I always think it's so foolish, because if someone like myself or Colton or Brandon or Rob or Bruce or, you know, Sam or whoever, all these, you know, Will, Wyatt, all these wonderful people that we work with, if we've already gone through hell for you, like, why don't you just ask us for the shortcut?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's like one of the things that you do very well, granted, this is not just because you're my wife, but this is your personality. Every every sale, you go, hey, babe, this is what happened. And I'm like, dude, you got to do a better job at that. And like, it's not like, and I'm saying it not because I want to offend you, but it's because I really want you to win. Right? And I'm like, your financial inventory sucks. You are interrogating them. Fix that. And you're like, in the beginning, you want to push back. But what happens is now I don't have to listen to you do the front end of the presentation. Why? Because I've heard you do so many good ones that I trust you now. You know what I mean? But like on day one, I'm kind of like, oh, they're going to call the cops because they think we're scamming them. You know?
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like, participate in your own rescue. You understand that you're not very good at this yet, so you have no problem asking for help and embarrassing yourself. How many people that, you know, have you reached out to? They're technically on our team, and you're like, hey, I don't care that they're on our team. I still don't know the answer, and they probably do. So let's go call them. You know, like we're in the house the other day, and I'm like, dude, I don't know who would take this client. And I'm like, you know what? Let me call Brandon and Teresa. Let me call Colton and Leah. Let me call Benny and David. Let's see what they say. You know, and so I say that because like you don't get extra brownie points trying to figure this out on your own.
Exactly.
You know, Sam and we were recruiting an agent this past week, and Sam had probably an hour conversation with him. I probably had another 45-minute conversation with him. Not once. And this guy's been in sales. Not once did we talk about comp. You want to know what he talked to me about, babe?
What?
If I called you and I'm struggling, would you answer the phone? He wanted to know how much support he was going to get from us. And see, that's what most people care about most in our business. They want to know that if they need a person for help, will you be there? And if you work in our group, right? The answer is yes. Because like you've been with me. Well, I mean, this was before you became a full-blown agent. On a Sunday afternoon, hanging out with our kids. Phone call comes in, I have to answer it. I feel guilty if I don't. And it's just who we are. This is the reason why we built a culture that we have in our group, you know? So I love you for that. Do you have any closing words on you know, your selling side of what you've done?
Yeah, for like the new agents, I think the best thing to do if you're struggling is to ask for help, because you're not the only agent we work with. We work with a ton of agents. What I found to be helpful is I started recording my calls.
Say that again, please.
Yeah. I started recording my calls, either like on Zoom or my extra phone, just so I can go back, listen to it myself, but not only that, but send it to my agent mentor, which is you. You know, I know if that way I know where to improve and I know what mistakes were made, because like I could remember, or even like with you, when I was sitting watching you sell, the way I started learning was I sat down there, I grabbed a financial inventory for myself and I started writing everything. And then I looked at yours compared to mine and I'm like, why do they look different? Or what does this mean? So I sat there and I wrote down questions and I looked for help. Because a lot of times when we work with agents, like I'm seeing people on here who were in a group text with me saying, hey, everyone, this is like Kelly, you know, she's out of Massachusetts or Boston, and welcome her to the team. She wants to get her license. And I remember saying like, hey, my name's Janelle, welcome, and walking her through that entire process. And they're really, really good at like keeping in touch with them. But when it gets to like the actual training, after the training, they get leads and then we never hear from them again. And it's like, because we work with so many agents, sometimes we lose track. Like, it's hard for me to like text each one of them and say like, hey, how's everything going? How are you? Where are your struggles? Have you booked any appointments? And I feel like that's what every new agent makes a mistake on, is they don't ask for help. They try to do everything on their own because they had the training. But yeah, you received the training, but just like with me, I would hear you training agents, but it never really clicked because I never really experienced what they were experiencing right then and there. So it didn't make any sense to me. So when it actually, like, when I was, working on the financial inventory and a question, came across, it really hit me, because I'm like, okay, I'm understanding it now, and it makes sense to me now because I actually went through it. So record your calls. You could send it to your agent mentors so that you can get feedback. I remember John Avila did that when he first started out.
Jordan too, Hamilton.
Yeah. And you're like, no wonder, like, you guys should do this or say this instead of that. And it helps,
It helps because people don't hear what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Like, what I'm talking to you, I think, okay, this is what's coming out of my mouth. I'm not in your shoes receiving the information. That's communication. Everybody thinks communication is what you say. No. Communication is what's received from what you said. You know what I mean? And so, like, the beauty of like me able to listen to a few of these people's calls is I can go, yo, do you hear yourself say this? And they're like, whoa. I'm like, listen to it with me. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, does that not sound weird to you? They're like, a little bit. And I'm like, change it.
And you don't even realize it too, because I would listen to my calls and I'm like, why do I sound like that?
It's not about what you sound like, but it's like what you say. You're like, I said that? I really said that. Yeah. That's what it came off as, and that's why it's like so many times, like, we can't see that. So we can't fix what we don't know. And like, it's so funny because I always tell people there's 3 levels of learning. The first level is you watch me. And then the second level is I watch you. And then the third level, which is where the most learning occurs, is when you have to teach somebody else. And see, we've gotten the first 2 parts down. I think we're working on number 3 now with you. And that's the reason why building this business is going to be fun. Because, like, you just use, Kelly as an example. The reason why you never followed up with Kelly, you want to know why? Because you didn't know what she was doing anyways, because you weren't an agent. Now you are. Now you can call her and check in to see if she's having a good day or not, because you know that they exist, the bad days. Hey, how's the rejection like? What objections are you getting? How are you overcoming them? You know what the current agent struggles are. And so that's the beauty of this business. But no, babe, I love it. Once again, like, this was not a troll. Like, initially, a few months ago, we were talking about this. It was, but last week you protected more families than our entire agency. And I wouldn't, with how big our group is, I'm not just going to throw anybody on there. Even though you're my wife, doesn't mean that we're just going to do it, right? But like, that's the reason why I wanted to share this with everybody, so they can hear that. So thank you so much. Go ahead.
So 1 is asking for help, recording yourself, listening to the calls, and then 2 is just, you always say it, the biggest enemy is the inner me. And like, it took me a while to realize that. Sorry if I'm getting emotional, but like, there's just so many battles within yourself that you have to overcome, and just use all the negativity as like a stepping stone to make yourself grow and reach the top, right? Because everybody's going through something, whether it's like with their family or personal, marriage, kids, whatever it may be. But we can't use that as an excuse, because if you do, you're not going to grow. You're not going to go anywhere. And that's why I'm like, that's like the first step, actually, is just like trying to get rid of the negativity and not just look at the bad days, because there are going to be more bad days than there are going to be good days. But those good days is what, helps me keep going, and really just like seeing everybody's success too. I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it. No offense to anybody, but I always tell people there's nothing special about the people that work at Family First Life. It's just those people wanted it more than you did. They needed it more than you did. And that's why they got to where they needed to be. And so, yeah, I'll end it with that. So.
I
Sorry, I
love
got
it.
on
Yeah,
my
there's definitely no way I'm closing after that. So
yeah.
um, thank you, babe, for doing that. Hey, I want to talk about building the business now. One of the things that I'll share with, and I'll be fully transparent with, I used to be so envious and jealous, whatever the word is, you can use it, um, of like so many people in Family First Life, right? Like I was so envious of Josh and Alondra. I was envious of Nina and Hayden, Teresa and Brandon, Leah and Colton. Like I was so envious of being able to work with their significant other spouse in this business because I didn't. And what's crazy is like when we started doing this, and this is, please don't make me sleep outside. When we, when we started doing this, I was like, maybe that's why we didn't do this.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes you don't want what you don't want. And for the longest time, for the first 3-4 years, I was like, man, like I'd be so much further ahead if Janelle was in my business. We would be able to do this and blah, 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 blah. And like the first 2 weeks we started working together, we had like 3 arguments, like big ones.
Yeah.
Fully transparent for everybody on here. It's not sunshine and rainbows. It's real. You know why? Because most people see all the positive that Janelle was talking about. What y'all don't know is you take your work home. And for some of you guys, you want to keep your work at work. And it's okay if you do. There's nothing wrong about that. But like, my wife knowing who I am, I take my work everywhere I go. That's why when people go, hey, how many hours do you work? I was like, I don't know. I work when I open my eyes in the morning, and then when I close them at night, that's when I stop. Like, this is what I do. It's just who I am. And so like, although I'm with the kids or with my in-laws or whatever it is, and I'm with my wife, like I'm still working. It might not look like I'm working, but I'm on my phone doing something work related. And now that you're a part of the business, like, I'm not going to lie to you. First, one of the first arguments we had, I pulled rank on you, and that's childish and BS. 1000%. I'm not going to even disagree with that. I know I was wrong. We have this recruiting process down, and I thought it was going well. And, Janelle calls me and goes, hey, I think I want to help out in the business. I was like, yeah, whatever, see wherever you need to go and go do that. Right. She goes, you know what? Let me rip the recruiting process apart. I was like, yeah, have fun. Go ahead. And she did. And then she came back to me one day and she said, hey, I don't know if you know this, but your recruiting process sucks. I was like, what? I was like, remember who you're speaking with. I'm an integrity partner here. You know what I mean? And she was like, no, your recruiting partner's process sucks. She was like, let me tell you why. And then she started giving me real evidence of what happened. And I'm like, yo, we do suck. And I remember sitting there going like, I can take the feedback that you give me and throw it out the window because I'm a quote unquote integrity partner. And who are you? Not saying that, but like, yeah. I can do that. Or I can go, you know what? This is really good feedback and we can fix it for the better. And luckily that's what we did. And like, once you did that and you started fixing a lot of the processes that we have, our business has gone up. The last 2 months, we've had record months. We have. And I attribute that to our staff, our wonderful agents, yourself included, for being able to do that. Explain to us on the building side, like when you started to transition to build this business with us too, like, why did you decide to do that? Like, why did you actually go, you know what, let's actually go fix this problem?
Yeah. I was just sick of seeing a lot of these people saying, oh, I'm so interested in doing this. I want to make a life-changing do this life-changing opportunity and all this stuff. And then like they ghost us. And I'm like, well, what's going on? I'm like, why? And I was just tired of working with people like that. And I was like, okay, so why do people ghost us? Like, when do they ghost us? And is it when we send them the voucher, or like after they sign up for the class, or and so we broke it down, because the recruiting part we have down. It's just like the process after that of like them getting from unlicensed to licensed and then licensed to contracted. But I wanted to help in that aspect because I wanted to have our team grow.
Right. And see, one of the things that I can tell you, and this is for all you guys that are going to become eventually agency managers, like your staff who does their job daily know about their job more than you do. And if you think you know more than them, you're wrong. It's the number one reason why most people don't grow is because of ego. Like, I'm not mistaken that although I understand how to recruit and I know the quote unquote facts of this business, our recruiter does more of it on a daily basis than I do. Our contracting gal does more contracting than I do. I do not understand what HDMS is, what the processes is. So like when they give me the feedback, I have to be able to actually take it and adjust with it, right? And when you broke down that process, like one of the things that you got to understand about working with your spouse is you got to understand their strengths and weaknesses. And for my wife, her strength and weakness is processes and systems. She's amazing at them. And when she like looked at what we did and she was like, you need to fix this, 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 and this. And I'm like, do I? And then like, she was like, here's why. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, all right, I guess we do. And once we started doing that, like things started to grow drastically. And it's like one of the biggest compliments is when we have new agents come through our entire process and they go, man, you guys made it so seamless. Your staff is so amazing. They're so supportive. Like that's a compliment to everything that you guys have all done. Right. You know, when it comes to the building aspect too, it's like, don't want what you don't want. Andrew Taylor asked this question one time in a meeting when we had a Rising Stars meeting. He said, how many of you guys want to have, you know, a board member business, which is like a team that does $1 million a month or whatever, right? And like everybody raised their hand. And he was like, how many of y'all want to deal with board member problems? And then like 2/3 of the room like brought their hands down. He was like, that's the point. Like everybody wants the goal, but they don't want to have deal with the problems that come with the goals. You know, and it's like when you and I made the decision that, hey, this is what we're going to immerse ourselves to do. This is what we're going to build. This is how we're going to do it, you know, initially with me. And now you go, hey, I want to do it too. Like we were very clear about that because our life revolves around this a lot, you know, and it's like a lot of people on this call, they go, man, like, I wish my wife was more supportive. Well, do you? You know, I wish my husband did this with me. Are you sure? You know, and it's like we used it in the beginning as an excuse to talk to each other more, but there's very, very many times that this gets brought back to our home where we deal with our kids too. And I just want you guys to understand that, you know, for those of you that are listening, because it's like, don't want what you don't want. Because although you guys see the glitz and glamour in the social media, there's a story behind the story too. You know, did you want to kind of chime in on that, babe?
Yeah, I just wanted to rip your head off. But no, but you know, for us, when we have a disagreement, we always talk about it and we fix it. But it has its challenges. It's not always rainbows and unicorns. When we first we're looking through the process of recruiting and the agent success coach stuff, you're like, we can't do it that way because of this. And then like, I felt like you were belittling me and I'm like, don't make me feel stupid. It should be this way because of this and this and this. And then like, you know, with you, it was like an ego thing, you know? And then I don't remember if I did, but I was like, I think I called you out on it. And I was like, it doesn't matter if you're an integrity partner. But it like woke us up, you know, and I feel like with each argument that we have, it makes us like grow as a couple too. And it makes us closer together. And then that's why I really enjoy working with you, even though we have disagreements and stuff, but it's all a part of it, you know, because that's how you grow.
But it comes from a part of wanting to do better though.
Yeah.
Like I'm not arguing with you just because I want to argue with you.
Yeah.
We're arguing because we're trying to get better at something for the benefit of our entire team and us.
Yep.
Right. And so it's like the intentions are there, which is awesome. But you know, yeah. And if, by the way, if y'all have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A and I'll feel free to ask our wonderful guests the answer to the question. But I'll wrap up with this before we open it up for Q&A. You know, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for you. They always say like behind every strong man is a stronger woman. And I believe that truthfully, because vividly, there was a time, I think it was like my 5th or 6th month in this business after grinding my teeth out and getting kicked in the face. And, you know, we paid for our wedding, we did all that stuff and it was great. But there came a time where Andrew Taylor came up to me and said, hey, I have this county open for you to take, and I really wanted it. There was 4 other agents that wanted it. And he said, it's going to cost you this much money that I didn't have. And he said, and you have 15 minutes to tell me yes or no before I go on and move on to the next person, because I have a laundry list of people that wanted it. Matter of fact, if you wanted that county today, it's not available and hasn't been available for the last 8 years. I remember I was like, wow, I don't have the money. Let's call my wife, right? And so I was in San Diego because we were at a training in Carlsbad, and I'd called you and I said, hey, babe, a really, really good opportunity just came up and I need to do it. I firmly believe I need to do it, but I need your help doing it because I don't have the money for myself to do it. And you said, I vividly remember this Thursday, you said, I believe in you. Whatever you think is best for our family, let's do it. And we swiped your card on the first transaction. And from that moment on, that blessing that we got, we were able to protect 20, 25, 30 families every single month for the rest of our career, minimally, just running in that area. But it's because you were able to give me that opportunity when I didn't have it for myself, and it easily would have skipped me and rolled on to the next person, you know? And I say that because, like, I always jokingly tell everybody, like, I don't know why my wife always asks me if she can buy something, because the answer is always yes. And I'm blessed because you don't take advantage of it. And it's not like you go shop at the crazy department stores anyways. But it's like, I always tell people, like, when I was in the darkest of my days and my lowest of my lows, you were there for me. So therefore, if we're at the highest of the highs, you have it all too. Like, you deserve all of this. And so I wanted to let you know in front of our entire group that I'm thankful for you. And yeah.
Sounds like I should be the integrity partner. Just kidding.
Right. So, but yeah.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too, and thank you for saying those kind words. For everyone who's struggling right now with, like, getting support from their spouse, because it is a difficult industry to be in. When Stephen first started out, I would get mad at him because he would literally go to the car and he would be speaking to an agent, and then we'd have like a 3-hour drive to go somewhere, or to like Northern California to visit my family. He would be on the phone the whole time and wouldn't say one word to me, but like, getting your spouse involved is what helps. Because if you involve them, and eventually, like, it made me interested. And, I saw you struggling in the beginning, and I wanted to help you with that because I love you, and I wanted to help you where I could. And we're a team, when you get married, you become one. And I saw where you were weak, and I wanted to help pick you up. And if I had to carry you, I would have. And that's why I'm like, get your spouses involved, and get, inform them about it and talk to them, because it helps. At first, I didn't want to do it because I was like, yeah, the money is good, but like, I never get to talk to my husband. You missed out 2 years in Jules's life, and it was a sacrifice that we talked about. There are a lot of struggles coming into this industry, but like, learning to work together, and like this thing that we built, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like, each struggle, each argument just like brought us to where we needed to be.
That's the other crazy part, is like, for everybody thinks that it's going to be easy for you to, make the income of a top 10%, 5%, 1% of America. Like, dude, it ain't. There's a reason why it's so thin up there. And it's like, you're gonna have to give certain things up. You got to give up and grow up in order to go up. Like, y'all have heard me say this many, many times. And it's like, sometimes the very thing you value the most, which is your family and your time, are the things that you got to give up temporarily to have it permanently free forever. And that's the tough decision that you have to make. Like, I remember, like, when we were talking about this, like, dude, think about this. We used to go on dates and we would order right to left.
Mm-hmm.
We will look at the prices of the food items and then go, okay, we can afford that. And then look across to see the food item to see if that's actually what we wanted to eat. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. And to be able to go, like, we lived in a time, like we were talking about it with our daughter today. Like, baby girl, you see this room? That used to be the size of her home. Now it's like our loft or whatever it is. Like, and it's like we grew through that. You know, and that's why I'm like, the fact that you went through the struggles with me, it's like, you deserve it all. And it just reminded me of, like, a few years ago, we made this jar of all the things that we wanted in life that we thought were like so out of the reach, that there was like, it'd be like, if we did that one day, we'd be living the dream. And we like put these little like yellow and blue and orange little sticky notes, and we just wrapped them up and threw them inside of a jar. And it was like about a month or two ago that Janelle and I opened all this stuff together. And we were opening up the dream list at the time. Mm-hmm. And we were literally crying because it was like, we already hit them all because of this wonderful business. Mm-hmm. And it's like, although we want to quit every day, although we want to argue and rip each other's heads off, although we deal with so much drama, and although, like, you know, there's things that like can easily ruin our day, it's like, it was all worth it at the end. And it always is, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I just wanted to share that with you guys, so, like, for you guys to know that this is real, you know. Like, most of you guys on here knew who I was 4 or 5 years ago. Like, y'all knew the car I drove in, the life that I lived. Like, if you were to look at Stephen Yee today versus 5 years ago, it's two different people. And it's two different people because, like Janelle said, like, your biggest enemy is the inner me. You have to outgrow your situation. You don't think I wanted to be a multimillionaire when I was 28 starting this business? Of course I did. But I wasn't in a position to receive it because I would have hurt myself even more if you would have gave me that type of money back then, because I wouldn't know what to do with it. It's the reason why most professional athletes go bankrupt the moment they retire from their field, because they don't know anything about financial education. And so it's like, you have to become a better person and attract more in order to become more, you know. And I just gently wish that upon all you guys, to have that for you and your families, because, like I said, you know, this business is not easy. But damn, I would not trade it for anything else, though.
It's worth all the struggles and arguments and wanting to rip each other's heads off.
That's one thing that she's really good at, making something very tense relax. That's a skill that she has. So, babe, we have a question. One of the questions I hit here: what are some tips for agents starting to recruit? How would you go about that?
Checking in on the agents after you recruit them and get them in touch, because with our agency, you know, we work with your guys' downlines if you work with us, and checking in on them is what helps, because they're, you know, we all know pre-licensing sucks. You know, you open it and you sign up and you're like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And I always have to have that conversation with them. I remember Ignacio spoke with an agent that he recruited, and she was like, I don't think I can do this. And I had to make her believe in herself again. And I'm like, dude, you're going to fail probably the first time, because I failed 3 times. We have agents failed 7 times, 8 times, 9 times. But, you know, I always tell them, studying is hard, getting your license is hard, but being broke is also hard. So choose your hard. Which one do you want to do? But staying in touch with them really helps. Checking in on them to say, like, hey, where you at? Where you in your pre-licensing? Giving them studying tips, because you guys went through all this, letting them know, like, hey, you know, try not to memorize everything, read through the content once, and then just keep repeating that practice exam. Having them book their tests before we pay for pre-licensing is a big thing too, because then it sets a goal for themselves, because a lot of them are going to procrastinate, because we all did, you know. So that's a tip.
What are some points, like if you're recruiting an agent, like what are the selling points? Because you did this for a while too, right? Like you said there was like 6 or 7 selling points of your family first life. Like, how would you start that conversation? Matter of fact, for those of you that don't know, my wife is a way better recruiter than I am. That's not even a joke. We went to Olive Garden and she recruited our waiter.
Sure.
I was like, no, please don't, because it feels like I'm in network marketing again. She did. Some guy knocked on
Nope,
our door,
we're doing
tried to,
this.
what? What'd you
I said,
say?
nope, we're doing this. We're gonna
Yeah.
do this.
And then like the guy that knocked on her door to sell us ADT, she recruited him too. The guy that did solar, same thing. And it's like, but it shouldn't feel like a chore. It should feel like you're genuinely trying to help people. And she does a really good job at that. So like the recruiting question, you should definitely ask her. How do you get people interested in taking a look at what we do?
When I first started doing it, you had like a script for me, and then I just like edited it, but I just talked about like how Family First Life had the highest comp in the industry. There were leads so that you didn't have to call your Aunt Mary or Uncle Bob, we did, what's it called?
Training,
I haven't done this in so long. So
training, fees,
training, fees, comp,
contracts.
all that stuff. And it's funny because when I first called somebody to recruit them, I was able to recruit them, but I was literally reading what you gave me and I didn't even know what I was saying. And I was like, yeah, this would be a great opportunity for you. And then like he jumped on, but then like where we were lacking was checking in on them as much. But I remember I had it on Google Sheets and I would write the day that I would call them, what they said, whether or not they would book their exam. But that was it. And it's funny because like we have this like whole process where like we look through their resumes and all this stuff. And it's funny because I always tell a recruiter when we first like bring them on board, I'm like, I never look at their resumes. Like it doesn't really matter because they're going to learn everything as they go. You know what I mean? And I would talk to them because I would learn everything off of that. Like instead of just reading their resumes, I want to hear it from them, like what they did, know how many kids they have, where they live, and what interests them, and what made them want to want to get into the industry. And then from there, I talk about like, okay, so like at Family First Life, I break down like comp with them and like how we make money because not everybody knows how 1099 works and all that stuff. And then I talk about like how we don't have to sell to our warm market. We have leads that we work with and that, all the training is free. I'm like, there are companies out there that will nickel and dime you for everything, but like all our training is free. We have other companies going on YouTube, looking up Family First Life training so that they can steal our training and use it in their in-home and things like that. But yeah, that's basically it. That's my recruiting process.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is like you genuinely want to help someone. So the first thing you're going to do is identify what their situation is, right? You're trying to figure out if they're single, married, have kids or not. Like you're trying to see if they live at home, live on their own, whatever it is. Like you're just trying to find out about them. And then you're inspecting their current reality. And you're going like, all right, well, so like, what do you currently do now? How much do you make? Like, what are you trying to make? Like, what are your goals? And then like being able to figure out what the problem is. It's just like, for me, recruiting agents is like selling insurance, right? You go to a client's home, you're trying to find out why did they fill out the form? Like we're trying to find out why do they need to make extra money? And then whatever their answer is, taking the pieces within Family First Life to plug it in. And that's how we recruited. Like the guy at Olive Garden, like that was crazy. Like
we heard him because
he was talking to the table in the back and he was like, yeah, I have 4 kids and I do this 25 hours a week because of da 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 da. And I'm like, he has 4 kids.
He only made like $200 a week on a good week is what he said.
Something like that. And you pitched him and you were like, hey,
couldn't help it over here. And I'm like, I heard you have kids and like, I can't imagine living life that way. I'm like, if you want a life-changing opportunity, I'm like, reach out to us. We're like in this industry. And he was like, okay. And then we called and got in touch with him.
And the nice part is like, it's not like network marketing because like in network marketing, we had to like go stalk people in the malls and stuff. Thank God we don't do that here. But it's like, it's a normal conversation where we're out and about. Because like nobody wears their problems on their sleeves and you don't know who's going through some stuff and they might really need you. And that's why for me, it's like, I don't know. For me, it's like, I don't get embarrassed about what we do anymore because of what it's done for us, you know? And it's like, and we can help somebody do the same for them. Like I'm in. So, but babe, thank you so much for hopping on and being transparent and sharing everything with everybody because this is like what you told me the other day. You're like, you know what? I want to do a call about like the actual struggles of what agents go through. And I'm like, okay, like we haven't done that, and you're like, we want to be able to actually share the good, bad, and the ugly and let people know that it's still okay. there's a lot worse things in life than what we do. And there's people going through problems that they can't ever solve. And it's like, I learned this from Trey, and it's like, if you have something that money can fix, you don't have a problem. You have a challenge. You have a money challenge. A problem is like someone that's diagnosed with cancer and they can't beat it, and there's nothing else they can do. They have a terminal illness or some sort. That's a problem. And it's like, we got to be careful of the words we use, because that's what our brain will think of what we have. And so it's like a temporary challenge is not a permanent problem. We got to remember that sometimes. So I love all you guys on this call. Thank you so much for hopping on a Monday with us. And I know we threw you guys for a loop because we initially said it's postponed and now it's back on and whatever it is. So we appreciate every single one of you guys. If you ever need anything, please reach out to us. We and our staff are here to assist you, to teach you how to grow this and do all that. So we love you guys. We'll see you at the top. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.